Today I'm going to tell you how Sleeping Giant from 2015, the movie directed by Andrew Civadino, it can represent realist cinema as the heart of Canadian film identity. Disclaimer that there will be spoilers, so if you do plan to watch the movie, do not watch this video. It's gonna ruin it for you. The film follows three teenage boys, Adam, the main character, Riley, and Nate, who are cousins, in their journey up at Lake Superior, which is a mesa in Thunder Bay, Ontario. So it just follows their journey there and how they're trying to fight boredom and trying to figure out what to do. And throughout the film, there are moments of conflict between them, young teenage love, a family love affair, teenage delinquency, adventure, but it all ends in a huge tragedy. It's actually developed through a quiet, observational style, and the camera kind of follows the characters, even when there's moments of silence, and it's just kind of observing their everyday situation. The wardrobe, the setting, the Canadianness, even in the dialogue with just the use of like how Nate says a lot at the end of every single sentence that comes out of his mouth, you can pick up the fact that it's in Canada. It's somewhere in Canada. It can't be anywhere else. The fact that it was done with non-professional actors and the entire focus of the film, including its own title, Sleeping Giant, it's a real place. It all puts together a film that can be very much identifiable as a Canadian film. It's very true to its roots and the entire energy of the film. If you live in Canada, if you grew up in Canada, you can tell that's a Canadian film. You can tell the characters are Canadian. What ties it to its Canadianness? It's the fact that it's very nostalgic. The characters are actually dressed in a very 2010s wardrobe, where back then most films made sure to include the characters with all the same hairstyles and clothes, as you can see. I think that it's a very nostalgic film just by its own appearance and the colors, the color grading. It's also the fact that the film is set in a cottage. You can't get more Canadian than a cottage. The cottage is somewhere where most Canadians will spend their summers, even if it's at a friend's or their own. It's just a known tradition for a lot of the population. But that's not all that makes it Canadian. It's not the nostalgic part of it or the the actual colors and the setting and whatever. It's how real the film actually looks. That's what makes it more Canadian. My argument here is that realist cinema is the heart of Canadian film, and how does Sleeping Giant represent that? So what is realist cinema? In simple words, it's not very far from looking like a documentary. The movie's energy is just as slow-paced and as observant. The goal is essentially to show the authenticity of people's lives through everyday situations and done through very naturalistic acting and non-conventional filmmaking. It's basically gonna feel like you're experiencing the entire story as if you're also a character in it. And according to Andrew Civadino, the director himself, in an interview in 2016, the story originated from his own experience growing up, spending his summers on Lake Superior, and that's how he was able to write it. So with that, a realist film is supposed to feel real, almost as if it's like retelling a story, or if you're experiencing it as it's happening. William Palmer Lowe states in his chapter 3 of his book Existentialist Cinema that, where is that? We judge a film to be real because it is plausible, and plausibility is determined by what we already expect. So if we connect that to Sleeping Giant, the entire story is almost as if you're like, okay, something is gonna go wrong. Because these boys they're just all over the place, they're fighting all the time, they're so aggressive with each other, they're, always daring each other to do things. Something wrong is gonna happen. And that's what makes it so real. So here's a spoiler alert. One of the last scenes where Nate and Riley decide to jump off the cliff, what are you going to expect that's going to happen? Somebody's going to get hurt, right? And that's exactly what happened. Nate dies. So another way that you can identify realist cinema, aside from how real it looks. It's by its repeated pattern of having like these long, awkward scenes where it literally seems like you're waiting for somebody to speak or to act, and you're just like, okay guys, what's going on? Or you can see it through the significant focus of the actual setting of the film. There's very, very long takes of scenery. It almost becomes like a montage. If it's not in the intro, it's in the middle. Not in the middle, it's in the end, to just kind of tie it all together and say, hey, the focus here is to show you how real the place is and how the story literally happened here. And it's not about the story, it's about the place. And the stories in general that may happen in that specific community. Here is a scene from another realist film, Atanarjuat. I never know how to pronounce that name. The Fast Runner. A very awkward 20 seconds or more of just absolutely nothing. And then here you can see also from Sleeping Giant, the same thing is essentially happening. It's just not much is going on. And then you can also, you know, distinguish a realist film with the characters' relationships with the setting. So it's, you know, you can see here they're literally interacting directly with nature throughout the entire film. And you can also see it even with the relationship of the characters with each other. Like, there's these moments where you're supposed to sit back and be like, okay, well, that's their relationship. Like, it's about their connection and issues and family stuff and how the character feels about it. So it's very slow paced. There's a bunch of handheld shots as seen here. There's establishing shots. It shows that it's about the place, not about the story. Random B-rolls for whatever reason. They're showing the leaves and the trees and everything else, but what you expect to be looking at. There's also a lot of long shots, a bunch of close-ups. Close-ups are extremely important here, just because you're literally with the character and it's like as if you're staring at them, and usually you're not going to focus on anything else but the person's face. So that's kind of what they wanted here. They want you to feel the emotions of the people involved. There's these awkward and jarring cuts that you wouldn't do unless it's a documentary. Again, that word keeps coming back. I feel like if Canadian cinema is not about documentary, about its beautiful landscapes, it's realist cinema. I wanted to touch upon, you know, aside from talking about The Fast Runner, Bruce Elder commented in his book Image and Identity, Reflections on Canadian Film and Culture. He says that in Don Shebis, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Going Down the Road Night from 1970, we can see the impact that its documentary realist style has on its dramatic structure. This is a film that is particularly a good example for several reasons. First, the film is clearly central to Canadian cinematic tradition. Many consider it the first fully mature work of the new Canadian cinema. Second, the film looks like it's part of a Candid Eye documentary. That, you know, you're observing everything that's happening, and that's exactly what Sleeping Giant did. Very natural and observant, like, it has Candid Eye movements. It has that authenticity to it, and I feel like I've been saying this 15,000 times. Going Down the Road is also a realist film, and if you put the two and two together, you know, the only difference here is that one was made in 1970, the other one was made in 2015. In the introduction of the part 2 of Bruce Elder's book on his topic about realist cinema, the realistic image seems to have the power to reconcile consciousness and nature, for it possesses both some of the spatial features of the natural world and some of the temporal and some of the phenomenological features of mental representations. Although many Canadian artists have reached this conclusion, the type of realism other artists have adopted in cinema, permanently, filmmakers working in documentary, docudrama, and realistic fiction, is a realism that assumes that the image can present the whole truth about reality. He states that this type of realism operates by deploying an illusion of presence, which is correct. Like, you feel like you're exactly there with the characters. And then he also states that the realism of Canadian documentaries and realist fiction films is based upon mistaken epistemological and metaphysical views. How do I cite it here? That I am referring back to Image and Identity, Reflections on Canadian Film and Culture by Bruce Elder, as well as Existentialist Cinema by William Pomerleau. You know, with everything kind of tying together, there's very minimal plot in realist cinema, so it kind of is like it's a slice of life. So a realist film does not follow the conventional rules of fiction films to the point that it makes it look like a literal documentary. I think I said that like 15,000 times. There's a lot in Sleeping Giant that is a reflection of our past history with films like Going Down the Road and The Fast Runner, that Sleeping Giant can essentially be the new... It's just an opinion here at the end of the day, but at the same time, it's a great movie. It's a really good movie. I was thoroughly impressed by the performance of the actor Nick Serino, who played Nate. It's an amazing performance for, you know, the age that he was. He was just a teenage boy at the time in 2015. His performance really tied the movie together in making it so real, because at one point in the story, I was looking at this movie and I was like, are we sure that like they didn't just tell them to live their life and then they recorded them just doing their own thing? Because all three boys did an amazing job collaborating everyone together, but Nick Serino specifically stood out to me because he really brought out the realist in the film. That's a Canadian right there. Like, you see right through the person. The point here is just to enjoy. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch it for all these cars and actions and I want the adrenaline and everything. No, you're like reading a book. That's literally how it feels. And for the majority of the film, like, not much seems to differ from one day to the next. Same energy happening over and over again until the ending, where something is like bam, and then that's when you realize, oh, that's why this story was happening. That's why this was made into a movie and not a documentary. Plot of Sleeping Giant is essentially to show the Canadianness of the film. Sleeping Giant can very much represent realist cinema as the identity of Canadian film. It's so authentic, it's so natural, it feels cozy. You know what I mean? Feels like there's not 50,000 people behind the camera. So that's basically it. I am doing a very informal outro because once more it cut out. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned at least something. I can say for the purpose of this assignment, I learned there's so much more to what a realist film is than what we think. Even like the Candid Eye movement is so connected to that style of film, and I feel that it's something that not many people see. So they will watch a movie like Sleeping Giant and say, oh, it's a boring movie, because of the fact that it's very slow-paced or it's not what we expect of the Hollywood style. Let's focus on realist Canadian film. So Sleeping Giant is now one of my favorite movies, to say the least.